Hudson High School, puppets are coming alive. They're educating the children in front of them and enlightening the teenage puppeteers behind them. Out on the fields, the varsity baseball team just made its deepest playoff run in years. And back at Hudson High School, longtime principal Brian Reagan is moving on to a new job. We talk to him and reflect on his time in Hudson before he leaves town. Those stories on this episode of Hudson Spotlight. Good evening, everybody. Hello and welcome to HUD-TV. This is our brand new news magazine broadcast, the Hudson Spotlight, the second episode of this new show where we take you in depth, each episode into new corners of our community. In this episode, we have three stories for you, all loosely focused on the Hudson Public Schools. A lot to get to, so let's get started. We'll go now to our lead story on Puppets in the Park, the annual puppet show put on by Hudson High to educate kindergarten children on those living with disabilities. Let's take a look at that.
We're the puppets in the park. Our show is gonna rock. We have disabilities, but we're just like you and me.
Though far from the glitz of recent productions like Bye Bye Birdie or Spamalot, the annual puppet show Drama Society puts on for kindergarten students is the one that recently nearly brought drama teacher Kathleen McKenzie to tears. It has no elaborate lighting, nor costuming, nor makeup. Rather, the annual Puppets in the Park Disability Puppet Show simply places a few members of the HHS Advanced Theater Studies class behind a tall table to act out a series of sketches educating children on various disabilities. After its 20th year in existence, though, McKenzie and Puppets in the Park creator Frank Noyes agree that it is much more than a 30-minute puppet show.
Little history. Back in 1986, there were 7 people in town who decided that there was a need to focus on disability awareness in Hudson. I can tell you 2 of the people I know is Nan Kurtz and Nancy Sullivan, and they went off and formed the ADA committee. And it was Nan's insight that we wanted to build disability awareness with the people, and figured that we would do it with somebody with the young folks in town. So we started with the kindergartners to build disability awareness. And she had the brainstorm to do a puppet show because kindergartners love puppets. You know, I can do anything with puppets, and the kindergartners love it.
By the time McKenzie got involved in the puppet show, it had already been running for 6 years. In fact, McKenzie remembers one of her first interactions as she observed Drama Society before starting her new job as being with Noyes himself.
And he told me that if I wanted a job, I had to be a part of it, tongue-in-cheek, obviously. So I knew I was going to start this show from the beginning, and how could I be a part of it? So it's been 14 years now that Advanced Theater Studies has had this be a part of their curriculum. And the first year, I believe we did the exact show that Mr. Noyes wrote. And then the second year, I knew we needed to start adding some more depth to it, more interest to it, make this more exciting for the kids.
Indeed, over the years, the show has evolved according to both changes in attitudes and understandings of disabilities, and according to the puppeteers behind the show.
Other students like Sam Kurzankowski, another name from the past, his mother is an amputee, and he said, we need to have somebody in this show that wasn't born with a disability but became disabled. We had somebody else whose mom was very much involved with people on the spectrum, so she really wanted to get that scene right. We had a student here, her name was Kat, you may remember Kat from the years, whose mom works with deaf children, and we really bumped up that whole thing.
Even McKenzie herself said she feels she has left her mark on the show.
When I became a mom, I started to teach my kids baby sign language, and so I wanted to get some of those things that I was teaching my own children into it, and that's how we got like rain and rainbow as part of it. So it just grew over the years.
Having seen his creation morph over the years, Noyes is grateful. Particularly, he said, he is happy to have the show updated for 21st century understandings of disabilities and modern technologies designed to accommodate for those who have them.
I think it's phenomenal, just from a standpoint of that, you know, I wrote the show, it was a basic type of show. They're not only we've added 2 different skits to it with a couple of puppets with disabilities that weren't in there before, but they've added things in it that just add to the show. They added a song at the beginning and the ending. They've brought it up. Just like our deaf person before couldn't hear and had to use TTY, well now they've added, they text on their telephone. They've brought them up into the 21st century, from what I had written.
At 20 years old, the show has now been run for an entire generation of Hudson Public School students. Filling rooms with well over 100 children per show, Puppets in the Park has become a universal experience shared by thousands. Yet at its core, when discussing the show's real meaning, purpose, and impact, Mackenzie recalls a moment in a small elevator with her 3 boys.
And there was somebody in the elevator with us that was in a wheelchair. And my boys were like wanting to talk about this person. And before I did this show, I would have done what every person does. Don't talk about that person. Don't look at them. And all that does, as I've learned from the show, is teaches your kids to be scared of people that are different. And instead what I said is to my boys, yeah, she's in a wheelchair because her legs don't work right. And I saw, I'm going to get emotional maybe, I saw the look on the woman's face in the elevator with us. And she was like, they get it. And she had a conversation with my boys about being in a wheelchair. And to this day, my kids, they're not scared of somebody that's in a wheelchair. It's not something that's bad. It's just somebody needs a little bit of help. And don't we all?
Wonderful work going on there. Now, in addition to the puppet show, the ADA committee in Hudson has been a loud voice advocating for the rights of disabled residents for years. Definitely worth recognizing the work they do. Pivoting now to sports, the Hudson High varsity baseball team put together a season this year better than many in recent memory. After finishing their regular season strong, the team then made a run all the way to the district finals. We caught up with all-star pitcher Tim Person and head coach Tim Reinhardt recently to talk about this season's success. Let's take a look at what they had to say.
The Hudson High baseball team returned to Pheno Field in Milford for the second straight year just a few weeks ago, once again in a district semifinal face-off. Aside from that, though, everything about this year's game was different. The Hawks entered that game not as the surprise success story of the postseason as they had the year before, but as a feared powerhouse holding the attention of coaches, fans, and media personnel across central Massachusetts. A year ago, they were making a return to the postseason after missing it the year before. This year, they were simply picking up where they left off. And, a year ago, they lost their semifinal game at Pheno Field. This year, they won it. The Hawks would ultimately lose their next game in the district finals, but in the grand scheme of things, players and coaches alike are reflecting on the season with pride in their program's progression. We start with pitcher Tim Person.
Yeah, I think, definitely obviously where we finished, it's not where any of us, thought we could have gone or wanted to finish. I think there's definitely a lot of positives to take out of the season. We talked a lot about the bond that we had as a team and how tight-knit we were. I think that was definitely something that, we'll be able to bring with us, past a school environment or past a high school team environment. That's something that, we'll remember forever. And I think just kind of revitalizing the program and kind of the town spirit, the program. I know that, all of our playoff games, we had a bunch of fans there, a bunch of, parents who don't even have kids on the team, but, they wanted to come support. So I think just for the school and the town as a whole, that's huge. So even though, we couldn't, win the district championship or, make a run in the state tournament, I still think, all the positives that we brought to the town and the school were definitely huge.
Indeed, all this does occur in the shadow of Hudson's first failure to qualify for the playoffs in years, just 2 seasons ago. After they succeeded this year, Coach Tim Reinhardt was quick to admit that his leadership of the team was informed by that difficult 2016 season.
Yeah, it made us, as a coaching staff, I guess, really start thinking about what we could do differently with this group of kids. That each year and each set of kids is a different group, and they need to be approached in a different way. And so that's really at that point when we started looking at ways we could improve. We knew that they had baseball skills, but ways that we could improve our our hustle, our mental toughness, our ability to exist as a team. That's when we started doing that additional sort of off the field work, so to speak, that I think helped propel us.
Tim Person was on that team that missed the playoffs. Likewise, he has grown with the rebuilding program to become one of its top 2 pitchers. In reflecting on his dominance from the mound this spring, he diverted much credit to the play of his fielders behind him.
For me, it's just a lot of, trusting the guys behind me. Guys like me and Noah especially, we both, throw our pitches well. We focus on throwing a lot of strikes. That's definitely something the coaches preach a lot is, getting ahead in the count, pounding the zone with strikes. But I think for us, it's really just having the confidence in our defense behind us that, if we throw strikes, we may not be striking guys out, but, we know if the ball gets put in play that we have confidence that the guys are going to make plays behind us. And for me especially, with some of the guys that we have in the infield and the outfield, I know that if I'm doing my job and throwing strikes that, I'm more than confident that anything goes up in the air, the outfielders are going to catch, or anything that's down on the ground, the infielders are going to make the plays.
Undoubtedly, Person will be part of the Hudson roster going forward. Knowing that, Reinhardt is confident about the team's future as it hopes to continue what is already a 3-year saga of year-to-year improvement over on Riverside Field.
Yeah, so next year, both of our top pitchers will be returning, Tim and Noah. We'll have Matt Gerard, who caught most of the games, returning behind the plate. Then we'll have a few kids that were in either reserve or sub-varsity roles have the opportunity to step in. Ben Chase is a very talented athlete, and he'll play a big role next year. Chris Lennox and Anthony Carlman, junior and sophomore respectively, that project to be big players. And those guys have been with the varsity team all year. And then there's even somebody like Josh Jacobson, who was a junior, and just the way that the numbers broke down. Any other year he's a varsity player, but the way the numbers broke down, he played JV this year and got a lot of good playing experience, and he's gonna, step into a big role next year as well. So we're gonna be sad to see the seniors go, but we have a good core coming back, and the belief is that we're going to be able to supplement those with some new guys here and there, and we're going to try to be right back in that.
A great season indeed for the baseball team. Now, as baseball ends its season, the principal who oversees their play at this school is ending his employment in town. Principal Brian Reagan announced recently that he will be leaving Hudson. And we caught up with him shortly before his last day. Let's take a look at what he had to say. Principal Brian Regan's days greeting students at the beginning of the school day are numbered, Hudson learned earlier this month. In a surprise announcement, the longtime Hudson headmaster announced he will be leaving the district July 1st to take on a new position as the assistant superintendent of the Wilmington Public Schools. On his way out of Hudson, Regan, a man who takes pride in his connections to the student body and his progress helping it, is reflecting on these past 7 years in his corner office.
Yeah, so when I came here, there was a real, there was a push to try and, increase, for lack of a better word, sort of the academic focus or rigor in the school. That, the school had a different series of focal points over the previous 10 plus years, and they wanted us to sort of take a look at the academic programming and see if ways that we could diversify it, and so that's really been a large part of my focus. So, and really trying to approach it from multiple angles, like not just adding AP courses, for example, but trying to make sure that we have not only more challenging courses, but also courses for students, quote unquote, in the middle, and students that have special education needs or social emotional needs.
As much as he enriched the book of studies, however, Regan has faced challenges. After dogging the district for years, a dwindling budget finally forced Regan to lay off several teachers earlier this year.
My goal has always been through this whole budget process this year was to keep as rich a program of studies as we can. I think that's one of the strengths of Hudson High School, is that we don't offer everything that everybody wants, but that if you have an interest in visual arts, that you've got an array of classes you can take. If you have an interest in writing, then you've got an array of classes.
Beyond layoffs, Reagan also faced a similarly difficult part of his job with an eye towards progress. After entering Hudson and diagnosing a problem with student discipline here, he now feels he made that progress.
Yeah, there was this, there was this idea that sort of the inmates were running the place, for lack of a better term, when I got here, and that, I think that was exaggerated. But I think where that stemmed from was this idea that there was inconsistency in terms of expectations and maybe how discipline was applied. So when I came in, I worked very closely with our assistant principals to sort of look and listen to the feedback we were getting from teachers about what they felt they needed more of in their classroom in order to teach more effectively, and certainly support from the office around, sometimes it was just small level silly behaviors from students that they just needed somebody to come in and say, look, like, this is not how we behave here. And that was the approach that we took early on. And I think you and I had talked about this months ago, but there was an initial spike in suspensions and Saturday schools because we came in and said, look, enough's enough, we're not going to do this anymore. And then there was this incredible drop off the next year, which is what we wanted to see, right?
Whether it's enhancing the book of studies or disciplining students, Reagan has always understood the need for connections to the student body. As a result, he has played in pep bands alongside students and performed at baccalaureate, among other things, in addition to serving on lunch duties and greeting students before school.
Yeah, it's something that means a lot to me, and in my role, I'm not as able to be out and about and be sort of among the students as much as I'd like to be, but I do try and do that. I mean, as much as I can. I mean, I don't have to do a lunch duty. It's not like I need to be out there for supervision purposes, but it's those kinds of things, or being in the caf or out front every morning so that kids see me, or just saying good morning, or just good job last night on the play, or great game, or whatever it is. That kind of connection, I think, is something that that's why I got into education. I wanted to be around young people, and I wanted to try and influence or have an impact on their lives. And as you sort of go up the ranks, your influence becomes less direct and a little more indirect. And I guess I now see myself as my influence may be broader, but it's a little less obvious that I've been participating in whatever that influence is. So,
as both the policy and ceremonial head of the high school, Reagan speaks every year at graduation. In drafting those speeches, designed to say goodbye to hundreds of students at a time who together each form one cohesive class, he said he always considers legacies. Now, speaking on his departure, Reagan is looking at himself and trying to determine his legacy.
I guess what we talked about programming. So whatever programming has been created, certainly not by me, but under my leadership or with my through collaborative efforts that I've had with some really wonderful people. That aside, I think about my primary job is always, aside from making sure school is safe, my primary job is to make sure I'm hiring the right people to teach students. So when I think of the staffing that I've been able to work with others to add, then that perhaps is something that I'm most proud of, leaving behind. Now, most of the people were here when I got here, so but I've been able to add additional staff that I think have, for the most part, proven out to be very strong. And when they weren't, then we did what we needed to do to sort of separate from those folks. Just overall, when I think of most students that walk in the front door, that they're able to find something here that connects them and makes them feel good about coming to school. It's not everybody, and I'd love to say there's 100%, and that's still some of the work that we have to do. And you and I have had those conversations about some of our really bigger challenges around students needing more social emotional support, and how are we addressing the growing mental health issues that young people are facing, and we're seeing an increase every single year. And what resources can we put together, or how can we reallocate or refocus or adjust the resources that we have to make sure we're supporting those students. So I'm proud of a lot of things, but I know that I'm leaving a lot of work on the table.
Reagan just finished his employment at the high school, but the search is already on for his replacement. As discussed at a recent school committee meeting, the district has already been collecting applications for an interim principal position and will make that one-year appointment soon. From there, they will begin collecting applications for a permanent replacement in January of next year to make the appointment by the end of the upcoming school year. And with all that, we wrap up this episode of Hudson Spotlight. Be sure to check out our brand new HUD-TV YouTube page for this and other productions. For all of us at HUD-TV, and until next time, I'm Dakota Antelman. Have a great day, Hudson.